Samuel, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming to the American space here in Abuja. We're actually very delighted to see all of you, and we hope that you will continue to visit our space for this kind of event. Thank you very much. Our audience across our network for American spaces in Nigeria, thank you all for joining. Without wasting much time, I'll quickly call Victoria Cook, the Public Diplomacy Officer, to give us our opening remarks. Then we'll get the presenter on board to share his wealth of experience on US election with you all. Thank you very much. Victoria, over to you.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you all for coming here. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you all for coming here to discuss such an important topic, the electoral process. I'm very proud to be able to appear here for hosting this event in advance of the US general elections and presidential elections in the United States, which are happening on Tuesday, November 5th. Very exciting. We can't believe that it's so close already. As many of you know, the US mission in Nigeria is dedicated to supporting the pillars of good governance, which include accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. And we do that through ongoing outreach, training programs, special events like the one here today. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our guest speakers, to Mr. Samuel Eziokwu, the head of the Department of Center for Good Governance and Political Development. Thank you so much for being here. And also to our own political officer, Charlotte Nazarian. Together, they bring a wealth of knowledge and very unique insights on the US electoral system and the role of promoting inclusive and accountable governance. I'm sure you're all aware that the United States and Nigeria are the world's two largest presidential democracies. That's right. And we both share a long-standing commitment to democracy and rule of law. In the United States, our electoral system is designed to uphold democratic values and ensure that every citizen's voice is heard. We have a federalist system where elections are managed by states and counties and local government. And that provides a lot of the checks and balances that ensure the resilience of our democracy. And I can see that for a lot of people looking from the outside in, this system looks very complex and confusing, a little decentralized, but it's this special structure that makes sure that our framework of democracy is transparent and accountable. And it ensures that our democracy is inclusive, that it invites the full spectrum of perspectives into the conversation and building a government that reflects the will of the people that it serves. In the United States, as in Nigeria, we recognize that democracy is a journey, not a destination. It allows for continual improvement and self-reflection, and it enables us to address historical inequities, such as the struggle for voting rights. And while this is imperfect, it's an effective way to adapt and evolve. And it demonstrates that meaningful change is possible. Our discussion today is an opportunity to share the lessons and insights of US electoral experience. And through conversations like these, like the ones we're having today and the ones we're having in the lead up to the US election next week, through the ongoing work of civil society and academic leaders and government officials, much like yourselves, we continue to build an understanding and inspire innovation and democratic governance. So thank you all so much for joining us. I look forward to this rich and engaging conversation on credible elections and how they can strengthen our democracy and foster inclusive governance. Thank you so much. I turn back over to Dominic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for Victoria. All right, let's quickly go ahead and call our speaker for today. Please, over to you. Is there a way you can
Thank
position the camera to
Morning,
see
everyone. My
the...
name is Charlotte Nazarian. I've been in Abuja for about 12 days. And I want to thank everyone in the whole country. I felt so welcomed. It's a little it's a little scary moving to a new country, but I've loved it here so far. So thank you. First and foremost, I work in the political section at the embassy, helping with our anti-corruption effort and increasing transparency and governance. So let me get started. Let's see if we can get this. Oh, I accidentally paused the screen sharing. Here we go. Can we do the next slide? I'm so sorry. One second.
We can't see her face.
Moment.
Yeah, and we can do it without the slides. You can have the slides. Okay. Thank you. Perfect. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. So as Victoria mentioned, the United States electoral system is pretty complicated, but I'm going to try and explain it with the help of this map. The United States of America is comprised of 50 states varying in population, area, demographics, and political affinities. Our first president, George Washington, was unanimously elected with 69 electoral votes in 1789, and then unanimously re-elected 4 years later before stepping down. On November 5th this year, Americans will cast their ballots for electors to determine the winner of the 2024 presidential election. So what is the electoral college? When Americans go to the voting booth, they are not voting for a candidate. They are voting for a slate of electors or people that will represent their state in the electoral college process. Each state gets a number of electors based on population. All states have at least 3. You can see on the map here the number of electors that each state has, with the largest being California with 54 and Texas with 40. And then some states like North Dakota and South Dakota have 3 each. They're based on population size. There are a total of 538 electors, and a presidential ticket requires 270 electors to win the presidency. So you can see in the corner it says 270 to win. A lot of times people will say the road to 270. Once you hit 270, you're going to win the electoral college. So on election day, people go to the voting booth, they vote for their slate of electors. And then about 5 weeks after the election, all the votes have been cast and each state finds out which electors are going to represent them. The state will send its electors to the state capitol and they will cast their electoral votes and send them to the US Senate. And then about 3 weeks after that, a joint session of Congress, so both the Senate and House of Representatives, will certify the election results. A lot of that is technicality. We usually know who the presidential election winner is going to be the day after the election or the night of. There are plenty of intricacies and contingencies that I find fascinating, but they would require a completely separate talk to address. So I just threw a lot at you about the Electoral College. If you don't get it, that's okay. Fewer than half of Americans fully understand the electoral process. What matters for our discussion today is how the Electoral College affects US elections. The bottom line is the Electoral College means the person who becomes president is not always the person who gets the most votes. In 1876, 1888, 2000, and most recently in 2016, the winning candidate won the electoral vote, but lost the popular vote. This has caused a lot of people to advocate for the abolition of the Electoral College. Because votes for a presidential ticket are allocated by state, the Electoral College has led to the emergence of swing states, or states that could potentially be won by either candidate. There are thought to be 7 in this election. You've got Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, all across the country, all different demographics. States like California and New York, you can see are dark blue, are all but guaranteed to go to Vice President Harris. States like Kansas and South Carolina are all but guaranteed to go to former President Trump. However, there are the 7 states that are a toss-up. This means that the majority of campaigning happens in these states. If you look at the campaign schedules, Vice President Harris will hit 2 or 3 of these states a day, same with former President Trump. They'll visit Pennsylvania, Michigan, and then Wisconsin before going to a 4th, sometimes 5th state. And they do rallies, campaigns, door knocking, visits to restaurants. And the last week before the election, former President Trump, Vice President Harris, and their respective vice presidential candidates are going to these swing states where polling indicates it's going to be a very close race. Polling looks right now like the popular vote of those states is going to be within a 0.5 percentage point. So, voter access. Historically, Americans would go to their assigned polling place on election day and cast their ballots. Election day is the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. This is to make sure that November 1st is not election day, because a lot of times people will forget when the beginning of a new month is. The night after Halloween too, or Americans go out trick-or-treating. Whether it's because they're overseas, like me, cannot get off of work, or are homebound, some Americans cannot make it to the polls on the prescribed date. This year, it's November 5th. Since the late 20th century, there have been a number of efforts to make it easier for Americans to vote, namely 2, early voting and mail-in voting, or absentee ballots. While the US election is still 6 days away, over 43 million Americans have already cast their votes. So, mail-in voting. Mail-in voting, sometimes called an absentee ballot, allows people to request a ballot by mail, fill out that ballot at home, and send it back in the allotted time frame. Some states require you to have an excuse, such as being a college student or unable to get off work. Other states require no excuse to get an absentee ballot. And many of the US citizens who were here at the embassy voted via absentee ballot because they can't get to the polls next week because they're here. Originally, this was only for members of the military who were serving in the battlefield. This dates all the way back to the Civil War. However, since the COVID-19 pandemic, it's become more widespread. For example, in 2016, just 21% of Americans voted by mail. And in 2020, 43% of Americans cast their ballot by mail. The process for requesting a mail-in ballot and the time frame in which you have to send it back in is different for every state. And then you have early voting. This is a sticker I got for early voting 3 days before I left for Abuja. The other option for Americans is to vote before Election Day in person. It's also different in every state. 47 of the 50 states allow early in-person voting with no excuse needed. You can show up at the polls if you're registered to vote early, and then you don't have to go on election day. Each state starts early voting at a different time and ends it at a different time. Polls are sometimes open on Saturdays and Sundays to accommodate people who work from 9 to 5 during the week and can't make it to the polls. And I voted on a federal holiday, Columbus Day, because I didn't have to go to work. Early voting also helps avoid lines on election day. If you live in an area that has a lot of people, a lot of times on election day, lines will wrap all the way around the block. So if you vote early, you don't have to wait in line. I have voted by all three methods: in person on election day, via absentee ballot when I was in college, and this year I voted early. Like I said, 3 days before flying to Abuja. My vote has been counted every single time I cast my ballot, despite it being a different method. So, free and fair elections. What's a free and fair election? Free and fair elections refer to the democratic process where all eligible citizens have the right to vote without coercion or manipulation, and where the electoral system is transparent and impartial. So I can go to the polls, or any US citizen over the age of 18 who's not a felon can go to the polls regardless of their race, gender, religion, political affiliation. They can register to vote, cast a vote for their candidate of choice without fear of intimidation or walking out and being penalized for their vote. And this citizen knows when they cast their vote, it will be counted and reported accurately. It's kind of what a citizen looks for in a free and fair election. So how do they strengthen democracy, and how can we kind of look at the US as a case study for that? Free and fair elections, bottom line, legitimize an elected government. It makes leaders accountable to the voters who elect them and those who did not. When the people lose faith in free and fair elections, they lose faith and trust in their government, and this can lead to complacency, disengagement, sometimes even political violence. In order for democracy to work, there needs to be public engagement and participation. If people do not believe their vote is free or fair, they lose the will to continue to vote and participate in the institution of democracy. If I know my vote doesn't count, why would I go to the polls? Regardless of whether a voter's candidate wins or loses, if the election is unfair, it gives the voters confidence that the elected candidate has the support of a majority of their fellow citizens. So I have two quotes up here on the screen. One is from Senator John McCain, who, after losing to President Obama in 2008, said, "The American people have spoken, and they have spoken clearly. A little while ago, I had the honor of calling Senator Barack Obama to congratulate him on being elected the next president of the country we both love." In this statement, you can see that while disappointed that his campaign didn't win, Senator John McCain legitimizes the presidency of then Senator Obama and says, "We didn't win, but that doesn't make him any less of a president. He received the most votes, he's becoming the next president, and I wish him all the best." President Obama did the same thing in 2016 after former President Trump won, said every side is sad. Everybody is sad when their side loses an election. We're not Democrats first, we're not Republicans first, we're Americans first, and we all want what's best for this country. It's a hallmark of democracy. After an election, even if the person you voted for loses, you still have a sense of participation and belief that whoever is elected president is someone who has the mandate or the support of the people around them. This is a very common practice in a concession speech that the losing political candidate will give. It's been a little bit different in the past few years. It's taken longer to count votes because of mail-in ballots, but ultimately it is a hallmark of a free and fair election as well as a democracy. It is support from even the losing candidate. So I have another quote up here. It says, "Democracy is a small, hard core of common agreement." So those agreements being free and fair elections, the will of the people, and people being elected to lead by consent of the governed. And it's surrounded by a rich variety of individual differences. Democrats and Republicans could not be more different on a number of issues, but they all agree, or I believe most of them agree on democracy. You have people on either side who might have differing beliefs. So ahead of next Tuesday, how are Americans feeling? 73% of registered voters think the election in November will be run and administered very or somewhat well. That's 57% of Republicans and 90% of Democrats. You can see there's a bit of a disparity in both sides. Harris supporters are more confident than Trump supporters that after all the votes are counted, it'll be clear who won. And then Harris supporters are much more confident that mail-in ballots will be counted as voters' intent. So if I cast a ballot for Vice President Harris, that's going to count as a vote for Vice President Harris. If I cast a ballot for former President Trump, that is going to be counted for former President Trump. So you can see there's a lot of disagreement in America about how the election is going to be administered, how soon results are going to come in, how important it is for those results to come in a timely fashion. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Electoral College means that the person who wins the most votes doesn't always win the presidency. In years like 2000 and 2016, this causes the quote-unquote losing side, or supporters of then Vice President Al Gore and Secretary Clinton, to question whether the democracy is working for them. Their candidate won the most votes, but didn't win the Electoral College and therefore lost the presidency. How is that fair? The Electoral College was set up before the advent of the internet, modern postal system, and the ability to pick up the phone and call someone on the other side of it. Americans argue that in order to legitimize democracy, the US should scrap the Electoral College and just go with the popular vote. Others argue that the Electoral College underscores the United States of America is a union of individual states, not a monolith, which can be decided via popular vote. Each state's popular vote winner, with the exception of 2 states, wins the Electoral College. 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, split their votes by congressional district. So in all the other 48 states, within that state, whoever wins the most popular votes is the person who wins all of the electoral votes. So regardless of what side Americans fall on, there is no question the Electoral College is complicated and confusing. However, it has sustained the United States as the longest constitutional democracy in human history. It has survived a civil war, 2 world wars, multiple assassinations of presidents, and countless protests, movements, and dissent. The 2024 election will be a test for the United States, just as every free and fair election is a test as to whether a democracy can endure. Thank you, and I look forward to our conversation.
We can see the screen.
Good.
Probably that happened because we're waiting for others to join. You know, they missed the first session. But we're happy that they are all here now. So we can go ahead and start. Let's call on Dr. Sam. Please, over to you.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a great pleasure to be here today. Let me first and foremost appreciate this, inviting me to speak today on a very important topic, credible elections, United States of America, a beacon of democracy and inclusive governance. Actually, let me thank the first speaker for dealing with the Electoral College, because that I've been trying to go through. Okay, let me keep that one aside. And I'm going to talk about it later. So the first and foremost thing I want to talk to this topic. The theme is America. How is it a beacon of democracy? How? You know, when you talk about boundaries, just like we're in architecture, the people know about beacon. You use it to demarcate the boundaries of politics. So without election, a credible election though, it is difficult to give politics a bearing. It's like you are doing something where you are. Politics is nothing but Another one is the allocation of by people like this. So it's about sharing. Then last, we tell you and how that you get. So if you get the wrong person, they will not share with you. So it's one of the reasons why we American democracy. They take it serious. So democracy, if we want to be, we are talking about a system of government where those who represent the people technically, really, it is about to go and be in a position on their behalf. They are involved. Is you see them making sure that all the people are involved in their elections, and that is how they give back the power to them. And so when they get the power to govern, it's because inclusive. All that are inclusive is the inclusiveness. So when it is not inclusive, participating is not a good governance because we are not putting the right person. So what we're actually saying is that election helps you to recruit people who are going to be in positions of governance. And then those people who we have recruited, if it is inclusive, then it's representing the people. Then if it's representing the people and he comes into that position of governance, then he will promote by integrity, by honesty, and making sure that the welfare of the people are promoted. And that is why we applaud American democracy. They make sure that the person going there is on their behalf. I think we want to do an overview of elections as a model of stable and democratic governance. Number one, I want you to understand that I want to do overview in 3 ways. Number one is issue of that election being topical. This theme is topical. In the whole world today, we election in terms of maneuvering for elections, most other countries. That's the maneuver of election. People maneuver elections. And that maneuvering of elections is why American election is standing out. They don't allow you to maneuver it. Secondly, it has a historical content. Historical content in the fact that it has existed for over 200 years, like our sister was trying to explain to us. It's not the democracy of yesterday. Survived so many wars, the rest of them. So it's tested. There's something making it to stand. And I think I just speak on this topic today. I want to applaud and I want to appreciate the forefathers of democracy in the United States. I just want us to give a clap to them. Yes, let me tell you, it's not easy. We are not up to 70 years, but we know what we are going through. So they are for over 200 years. So you have to appreciate their passion. You have to appreciate their integrity. You have to appreciate their love for their nation. So that's why we have clapped for them.
Sorry, sir.
And I want...
Sorry, sir.
Okay.
Please, you are moving away from the mic. So if you can just move to your left.
Okay.
Your left, a little to your left. All right, that's okay. Then we can hear you very well. Thank you, sir.
Okay, good. So, and now another thing about this election is that visionary visionary perspective. America take note that what we are seeing today, like she appreciated, we still want some improvement. We still want to help other nations who are not yet getting it right to see how we can to get it right. Because many countries many are not getting it right. So it also be. And then, of course, the last one is that it is a model. And it is this model that I want to speak to now. I said election in America is quite relevant because of its in-depth, peaceful, stable, democratic evolution. And I said, United States is a status symbol and beacon of democracy and credible election in the world. That work in this book, which we published here in 2022, page 115. Now, Help America Vote Act have a very important destination that thrills me. Says it designated elections as a critical national infrastructure. I don't know if we are listening. Critical national infrastructures are like defense, like energy. So any country that will do well in election must begin to elevate election to be a critical national yes, infrastructure. If you don't take it that way, you won't get it at all. I will tell you why it is so as we go. Now, look at what Obama said. Elections have consequences. They are positive, they are negative. If you get your elections right, you have the positive consequence. If you get your elections wrong, then the credible elections are characterized by these four pillars. One is transparency, accountability, inclusiveness, and competitiveness. Today, I am supposed to speak on the theme, that is something which says safeguarding credible and inclusive elections. We took time to have an overview because when you want to safeguard something, you must know what that means, what the worth of it. So we've been able to underline the importance of credible election to a nation state like the United States. And that is why they hold it dearly and are safeguarding it. So we want to look at the ways they safeguard the election, which other people can also look at. First of all, we want to discuss it in 3 points. Number one is we want to focus on election security and transparency. And then we want to discuss role of diverse representation in ensuring inclusive elections. And again, we want to discuss addressing voter access and suppression, issues to ensure a fair democratic process. Election security and transparency should be one of the most interesting aspects of this meeting. So with election security, ensuring the security of voting system is crucial for voter confidence and sanctity of the ballot. If you cannot make an election trustworthy, there's no election going on. That's the truth. So one of the things the Americans want to achieve to make sure that their election is trustworthy. If you are voted, you can beat your chest and say, I'm voted by my people. So we have to underline it. Then what is the sanctity of vote? Sanctity of vote is that if And everyone must be moving, cast that vote. That is the sanctity of vote. Another issue of sanctity of vote is that the vote is the power that empowers anybody to operate that power of governance. It is totally in line with the International Covenant on Human Rights. And observe, it means you have brought it to a point. Voting is a right. It's a right that helps you to achieve other rights. Voting rights is so important. Because if you don't vote, then secondly, the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, ESC, guidelines for security include, they mentioned these ones. I may not go to explain them, but I have where I have my interest. Tamper evidence seals, they have security cameras, and a few others. But we are interested in system audits. We're going to take that up when we're discussing the electronic voting. That is what I'm going to explain that. Then election transparency entails each step being open to scrutiny. Yeah, there can be. If you are doing something and nobody is able to know, you should be able to observe. And then, now, if you want transparency in an election that is in the United States, one of them is strong election registry and registration. Strong election registry is a digitalized system of registering your people, where how the voters have in place in the United States. Because of that, the age of being registered. If there's an election, like election, all you need to click there and you where to vote, how to vote. They have and down to find out. These are the transparency. Wherever you are, you're able to key in. Then there is state-specific voter registration deadlines. You know, most of the voting registrations, you do it in your own state. So it's state-based. You have to go to your state, find out what is going on there. Then I want us to look at transparent campaign funding. This is another place many nations have not even looked at all. You know, the campaign funding is a major content of any election. And that is why people can come out in the US and make and contest without actually godfathers. And this is one of the things any democracy that wants to function well must deal with. They regulate campaign funding to maintain the integrity of elections. And two, Federal Electoral Commission, they monitor financial assistance. Let me tell you how if you, the state, they have a support. The county will have a support. Corporations will have a support. Even when individuals want to support, they are not going to give you the money. They bring it together in a consolidated account, and then they will disperse it to them as they work. So that you don't have any direct contact with funding. So they are able to know when there is soft money. Soft money is money that comes into the hands of people outside the book. They can monitor it. And then there's what is also called big money. the one from men with deep pocket, they will also know if you go beyond what is allowable, you are already in trouble. So this is something very unique and making the election very transparent. Then we have public funding. It's a college for campaigns, particularly during presidential primaries. Now, we are not in electronic voting in American elections. Harvard has done a lot that is help America vote. They prompted the acceleration of electronic voting system. And when they came in, they discovered that there could be too many errors if we don't take time. And so they devised what is wonderful: establishment of election infrastructure. That's called ISAC. That's Information Sharing and Analysis Center. This center, so you find out that critics are not only with the Federal Electoral Commission, it's shared with other organizations like, and it's warehoused in the Security Department of the United States. And they call it Department of Homeland Security. I don't know what we call it here. Is it our state security? So, what I want, the information about election has become critical. Everybody is seeing it. It's not about telling us that. No. Because people are seeing. Let me tell you, it doesn't stop there. They have auditors who are monitoring. The auditors are to go and look at the tabulation of results. So, tabulation of results are things that are tabulated, and then any particular group. So, in other words, my thinking is that they are balancing each other. On the physical, you must make sure. So, once everything is okay, they will certify the result. And when they certify the result, then they can announce. So, it's not something you just most transparent. Electoral security. These are the things that we must try to also emulate. Concern and precaution. Okay, yeah, I've taken care of that. Role of diverse representation in US. Diverse representation. When you're talking about diverse representation, we are talking about authentically reflecting the complexity of a society. You know, I was happy when you said that America and Nigeria are the largest democracy. It's like we're opposite when it comes to. So when they are here, we are here. So we talk about how we are going to help them. Honestly, because when it comes to somebody winning an election without reflecting the complexities, that is exclusiveness. You don't operate with exclusiveness in any political system and survive. So the diverse representation is that all the components are involved. So if you are representing them, then you know that you are part of them. And then you now promote equal opportunity for all citizens to participate as voters and candidates. I have mentioned it before that voters and candidates now begin to operate as if this is a right that we must exercise. Not just about please come and vote, please come and vote. No. You know that it is something you must do to help your state. And there's a measure when there is diverse representation. When many people come out to vote, there's a way we look at it. And that is what we call voter turnout. Let me tell you, before the last election in the United States, the voter turnout percentage was 64%. But during the last general election between Donald Trump and Biden, because of the intense contest of that election, the thing went up to 66%. Many people joined to vote in that election. So you cannot doubt that there was diverse representation. Man, but let me tell you, in our last election in this country, I'm not comparing, but it's just like we are two big democracies. We were 26.7% voted 26%. Before that, before that one, we were 34. We did. But in this one, we did 26.7. Okay, let's say 27. So you can now see when there's diverse representation and when there's no diverse representation. So it's, to me, such people is like you have gone to capture state without the people. Honestly. So now, another way of showing transparency in US election is electoral college system. She has spoken to us about, so I'm not going to waste time there again, but I want you to understand something. What I want you to understand there is that it strengthens federalism. Because in federalism, you share power between the federating units. These are the states. So if in electoral system, ensures that all the states must have voted you, and you must have got simple majority when all the states are brought together, then it means you are strengthening federalism. But on the other side, you are weakening federalism. People don't have reason for coming together. And this is supposed diverse nomination. Diverse nomination is that when you look out for credibility, you know, when you need diverse representation, you need somebody who is capable. And in US, they have a way of electing their presidents. The underlying competence, you must be competent. In fact, when I looked at how they pick their president, you must know few things about the nation. One is you must know about the economy. You can't be president of America without knowing the economy. You can't be without knowing about this. Without understanding the dynamics of politics, there are things that are dynamics, contending issues and interests in politics. You must know them. So because of that, they make sure that they look for the most qualified. And then promoting participation as a sense of citizenship is also another way of moving diverse representation. And here, voting is seen as a moral and civic right. People come out to vote. People come out to vote as that is a right to them. And then political parties play an important role in organizing participation and resolving socioeconomic conflict. Political parties, even if you say I'm ending, no problem. Political parties, they resolve conflict. On different ideological grounds, leanings. So when you talk about the demo, these are the ones that they practice liberal socialism, and they move to the side of the left, they move a little to the left, and they are ready to allow certain when you go to the Republicans, you see them maintaining, ensuring that the two balance themselves. When government is running, conflict that is going on, the parties face themselves. You have violated here. stayed here. So it's a war between them. And they save the government. The government is running, and they are settling the conflicts. And so for diverse representation, most of the people are involved in supporting this conflict, settling it. Who are better now? You say, okay. So let me, voter access. Let's take voter access and suppression issues. Voter access, particularly for people with disabilities, supported by reforms under Harvard. This is another area they are doing very well. The disabled, they find a way out for them to come and vote. It's a huge project. Then early voting, she has explained early voting and all the rest of them. Then historical challenges of voter suppression. I don't want to go into the history of that, especially for African Americans, because legislative gains made over time has helped us to win over, especially with the introduction of giving you your citizenship and all of them. Most of those things that used to be an issue have gone down. With all the other things taken care of. So, role of media in election transparency. Media's role in informing the public about the election process, candidates, and outcomes. We can remember one of the things. This is where many people also run away, because you will feel people who can see. When you face them, they say, we are not coming. And it is not come out and debate. No, it's not be on top of what you want to do before you can say, I want to contest. So, and ensure transparency by providing accurate information. They make sure that they give you accurate information, and the importance of combating misinformation too. Then we talk about voter education and awareness, very important, because the more you inform people, the more you are mobilizing them for voting. Then we have to take note of the impact of technology on elections, because it's going to be a continuous advancement. It's not something, when you what is working today may not work tomorrow. But people are looking for ways to beat you. We must continue to make advancements. Legal framework. So, key legal frameworks supporting credible elections, such as Harvard, is helping a lot in the United States. And then even their judiciary. Judicial rules in the election is wonderful. And then legal protections are also in place to safeguard voters' rights. So you can also know the legal content of our own election, how we are. In other parts of the world, they are in trouble. Non-partisan election observers to make the observations and discuss what they have seen without anybody dealing with them. But you don't talk. Other places you may not. They come out, they say, is that what you say? Did you, how? You'll be looking for a place to say it. But here, they will say it. It is even helping to checkmate. Once they are in a plain place, anything you do there, and once they report, there's trouble for that person. Addressing misinformation and fake news is also very important that we move towards addressing that. These are the things they have put in place. If you bring out fake news, they deal with you. They don't allow you to pay that information that are not real. Now, importance of accountability in elections. Accountability is about taking responsibility. If you violate the law will take care of the person. Not when you violate electoral principles, then you'll be beating your chest that you are the one. No, 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 no. Nobody will allow you. Foreign reporting channels for electoral malpractice are in place. They report what has been done. They build public trust when there's accountability. Then international influence and lessons. The US election system serves as an influential model for others. We have all agreed. Because we must find a way working together. And then we have lessons learned from international election practices that can enhance the credibility of US election. Take note of them. You have to be wary of them and then make sure they don't come in and then see how we help these ones to check what is going on there. So, and that's why we are suggesting that there should be international cooperations and partnerships in promoting electoral credibility. Yes, I think if we agree today, how can we so that democracy and the other meeting point? I don't think that we are very happy that what we are doing here is not actually coming out the way we want it. So, future of elections in the United States, trends and future developments such as increased use of technology in election, potential reforms to make elections more inclusive and transparent should be pursued. Then impact of emerging technologies of both voter engagement and the election security. I think in conclusion, credible, transparent, and inclusive elections are fundamental to sustaining democracy. So we're on the same page here. The United States, as a global model for electoral practice and the governance, is not in doubt. Need for continued vigilance and proactive measures against voter suppression should be pursued. And at this point, I want to thank you. My appreciation goes to the American hosting this event and for giving me the opportunity to. Thank you very much.
Charlotte is here to take your questions, and Dr. Sam is here as well. Please feel free to ask your questions. Please, for Samuel, for those who have questions online, we'll give you time shortly to share those questions with us as well. So we'll take questions from here now. Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Steve Odumoyiwa, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of being chairman for the African Freedom Forum. We have this Center for Good Governance and Policies, where our speaker heads. We're glad to be here. Just one thing for Charlotte. For those of us who are looking at the American model, the leadership, and all these things that we've heard this morning and afternoon, when we hear all of these recent, complaints, election not fair, election is rigged, election is this, especially from former President Donald Trump, and all the things about attempts to suppress or perhaps not allow them to head today, inclusivity, and so on. So the question is, how is that? We are worried that that's dimming this beacon that we're trying to follow. What's your comment, and what are the assurances we have that, especially this election that's happening next week, that there will be no disputes? We've always been used to seeing the kind of thing that Barack Obama and thank you, sir. What is that? I mean, that's why, for example, it was very, Platform for us in Nigeria with our former President Jonathan, also, hold up and, accept us. We just need this kind of assurance.
I'm over here, so I'm closer to the microphone.
I think we have taken all the questions. Yeah.
Americans are worried too. I'll say that you guys, aren't alone in thinking that. But I think contrary to what a lot of the rhetoric says, when most Americans go to the polls and cast their vote, they do believe that that vote is going to be counted. One thing I'll say about the 2020 election is ultimately it worked, right? So the system worked. There was a system in place that some of the representatives and senators on the Republican side took, not advantage of, but used to contest some of the electoral votes. And that system, they were able to contest those votes, but they didn't get enough votes to ultimately overturn the results of the election. So for all of the rhetoric and I don't want to say it was controversial that surrounded the 2020 election with January 6, 2021, where you saw a breach of the US Capitol. Ultimately, President Joe Biden, who was elected duly through the United States system, was sworn in on January 20th, 2021. So I think for all of that happened, I think it's important to focus on the fact that it worked. So there's a system in place. I can't speak to what's going to happen next week. I'm not a mind reader, but I think Americans are worried, but Americans also, I think most Americans, not just the loud ones, do believe that their vote is going to count correctly.
Thank you. Okay. 1, 2. Just take the number so to be easy. We'll have other people online. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, for the sake of time, all right. If somebody asks your question, please, you don't need to repeat the question so that we can actually move quickly. All right. All right. Let's start. Let's go. Don't worry. We'll start from the front row. Don't worry. Okay. We'll go this way.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Charlotte Nazarian, right?
Yes, I know I don't look Armenian, but I am.
Are you from Nazareth?
No.
Oh, because we know the story of Nazareth. That Jesus Christ went there and he didn't believe. And he didn't do miracles for you people. So I thought you were from there. So probably you wouldn't have prepared Jesus Christ and prepared him. Thank you for your presentation. I took note of a few points from your presentation. Starting from this on the aspect of safeguarding credible and inclusive election as it connects with election security and transparency. I think it was the 2016 election in the US. And there were reports that election was influenced. So there were foreign interferences as a result of the hacking of the system. I think that report came about from not state that
This online.
okay, this one.
Not this week.
This and Facebook. Okay.
This week.
And that report, there were foreign interferences that influenced the outcome of that election. I don't know who among you will have additional information to make about that, and to say to what extent can we be sure that no foreign interference will influence the outcome of this 2024 election. Already, Donald Trump is already crying out that the commentary from the Labour Party man in the UK, the Labour Party in the UK, is already having some kind of influence in the elections. For those of you who have been monitoring the election to that extent, there is still some commentary around debates and elections in the US being a matter of law. Yes, we see that there were a few debates, yes, I think 1 or 2 years between Donald Trump and Harris. But after the first one, the 2 of them, yes, that was supposed to be the second level of debate after Joe Biden. Yes, that was the first after Joe Biden dropped out. And there was supposed to be another one. But Donald Trump said, look, I won't join you in any other debate because the timing will be too close to the elections. So if it is a matter of law, Dr. Eziokwu, like you said, it will be then it's safe to say that.
So in the states, elections aren't, or debates aren't a matter of law. It's more a matter of tradition.
Okay, it's not a matter of law, it's a matter of tradition.
Yes.
Because I heard you say it's a matter of law, not like tradition. So, okay. All right, now going to this issue about election observers. Do you know that I never knew that in the US election that there are foreign observers? I used to think that these US people, they will just send the foreign observers to come and monitor our home. I never knew that election observers are accredited in the US to monitor, elections in the US. I'd like to throw more light on that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. I think that is the line. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentations and well done. Thank you.
So on the matter of foreign interference in elections, I know that when I cast my ballot 2 weeks ago, it was a paper ballot. So I had a piece of paper, I had all of the candidates, and I filled in a circle about who I voted for, and then that went into a machine. Some states do it completely on a machine. You just go and you click the button. Other states still do it by paper ballots. Mail-in votes are counted by hand. And then I think one thing that's important to note is that if there's a recount, so if the election's close enough and it triggered by law, if the margin of error between the winner and the loser is small enough, all the votes have to be counted again by hand. So it takes a long time, and that's another way to ensure that it's only votes that were cast in the precincts in the states were correctly accounted for. I think a lot of the foreign interference we found in the elections in 2016 and 2020 and even now is more in misinformation rather than misinformation and then hacking of personal accounts and emails to then be released as information. That's the majority of the foreign influence that we saw, but I can't speak, I don't have enough information to speak to hacking of voting systems specifically.
Yes, next question.
Thank you, Charlotte. I just have 2 points that I noted, and also from my experience, sometimes I have an opportunity to watch what's going on.
It's entertaining, right?
It's very entertaining, really. But I have 2 concerns, and I begin to think if America that we all think that or is a model, is beginning to degenerate into what we see in this part of the world. I would say no, it shouldn't be like that. For instance, at some point I watched Trump during campaign, taking on directly on Harris. And also, Harris also does that. And then you are now making the candidate as your object of campaign rather than concentrating on issues and all of this. I'm thinking that I don't know how you see it over there, if that's a concern, because I begin to see in recent years that you see candidates focusing on that candidate and trying to pull them down to make themselves. Well, I don't think that that's
crossing that line.
Exactly.
We are definitely, I think, objectively we have seen that change. There's a clip from 2008 where then Senator Obama was giving a town hall, and someone in the town hall said something along the lines of, Senator John McCain was giving an address, and someone said, I don't trust Senator Obama. He's a Muslim terrorist, and and Senator John McCain stopped them and said, President Obama and I fundamentally disagree on a few things, but he's a good American, he's a good father, he's a good husband, and you can trust him. And I don't think we would see that today. So that was just, see, I can't really do it, 16 years ago. And we've seen it devolve. I don't know if that's because of the personalities of the candidates or the pervasiveness of social media and rhetoric, but it's definitely something that we've seen.
Okay, so the other part of it is, yes, so at least a lot was said about American democracy being one of the models, but I'm wondering, is there anything that you actually identify that needs to be improved in this democracy? I was expecting to hear a little bit about that. There are, but of course, we also can learn from there. That's the question.
Well, I should think that I told you that when it comes to electronics, when it comes to electronic voting or using electronic gadgets or system, we should find a way of keeping on to advance those ways, because the people are trying to monitor what you are doing today. So if you think that you are okay today, you may not be okay tomorrow. I mentioned it clearly. Anybody who is using a technology must be careful that you are advancing with the technology. Otherwise, somebody can beat you to what you think is working. And then concerning your concern about some people coming in from outside. You see, one, if you have listened to me, I mentioned what happened is to have mentioned to you about an information sharing center where many agencies monitor. So that information coming is not as easy as you think. So because of that, people can peddle information, false information like you mentioned. But when you go to the nitty-gritty, you find out that it's not possible. It's not possible. The 2016, the last election, when Trump, that was during the time of COVID. Because of the COVID, most of the were done by mailing. That mailing was what brought out some, conflicts. So people were saying, who mailed what? How was the mail? I would say, what I say. But one of those things you must respect America for is that they have structures on ground to checkmate these things. Let me tell you, even when I was discussing with that situation, when it comes to issue of maybe intimidation or things like this, there are human beings. There are some tiny things that come up. So, but the truth is that if you do, you are not going free. And so, because they have strong democracy, they have strong judiciary and other measures for combating such things. You don't see them get to hand. But not that they can't, but they're human beings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a moment. Samuel, I know we'll have some people online across our network for American Spaces. Please proceed so they can ask their questions, Samuel.
Thank you. Very quickly, I want to thank our speakers for today. We have so many people, and you can see so many hands, and they've put so many questions on the chat box. So I'll quickly read just one or two or three from Calabar. He said, with regards to financial support, what impact does campaign finance have on the electoral process in 2024? Then the second one is coming from Jaws. Jaws says, what is so special about the Electoral College? And then why are votes from the Electoral College valued? So I'll just, those are two questions. I still have so many more so that you don't, so any of you can answer the question. Over to you.
I can start off and then turn it to Dr. Sam. In terms of the effect of campaign finance on the actual structure of elections, they are not, the structure of our electoral system is not at all influenced, should not at all be influenced by campaign donations. So donations from campaigns that are monitored on the FEC website, Federal Electoral Commission, you can actually hop on the website, you can type in any American's name, you can see every single political donation that they have ever given. which is always good to have that ability to do that. You can see how much they gave, when they gave that amount. And you can also go to each campaign and see who has donated to those campaigns. The structure of the electoral college voting systems are all independent of that. The money is given to candidates, their campaigns for marketing, campaign expenses, how much it costs to travel from state to state, and is independent of the electoral process itself. But Dr. Sam had some more details on that. So
Okay, when it comes to campaign fund, okay, you see, what I was trying to say is that at this level, what we try to assess is the principle, is the philosophy behind what is happening. And once you assess it to be okay, then the execution depends on the law enforcement agencies and the laws. So what I say here is that there is a structure in place for funding, which is wonderful. And so how they are doing this in 2024, it is for the different departments in charge to make sure they're doing it according to the prescribed steps of principles. So, because I mentioned two parts. One is the soft money. Soft money, the one you spend outside the budgeting, and then the big money from people with deep pockets who want to come in with what they have. Even when you want to come in with what you have, you are not allowed. That is what I say. So there are, if individuals want to go, you can still vote as donate as individuals. But there's a procedure. There's an account where you deposit, like she said. If you look at it, you will see how much each individual donated, and they will also present an account how it was utilized.
Thank you, sir. Very quickly, we go to Bauchi. And Bauchi, Onya Doris Chiamaka says, how do you ensure that people in the rural area participate in the electoral process? And then from Jos again, are the votes by mail accepted from all over the world or exclusively from the United States?
So in terms of, I'll start with the first one because it's easy. You can vote from anywhere in the world by ballot. So for example, a lot of the employees at the embassy here were able to order their ballots, fill them out here in Abuja, and send them back to the United States. Sometimes we're able to send them all back with someone who's traveling and then drop them in the mailbox there, but you can send it from anywhere in the world. It doesn't invalidate your vote. Yes, you have to, the important thing is you have to calculate the time that's going to take to get there. So a lot of times it takes a long time for the ballot to get to you, and then a long time for the ballot to get back. So you have to account for that, because sometimes the ballot has to either be accepted by election day, sometimes it just has to be postmarked by election day, depends on the state. And then in terms of ensuring rural votes, voting is done by precinct, which is based on the geographical area that you live in. So I can walk to my polling place on election day. It's close enough to my apartment when I'm living in DC or Virginia that I can walk. It takes me about 10 minutes to walk there. Rural areas, they're going to be a little bit more spread apart, but that's when people are allowed to mail-in vote. So if your polling place is 15, 20 minutes away by car, you're able to order a mail-in ballot and avoid having to make that trip. But get stickers if you go on election day, and you'll find that most Americans are really motivated by a tiny little sticker that says I voted. And then sometimes they're better if you go to the polling place. So some states have design contests, and I had a friend in North Carolina who got a really cool sticker, and I was kind of jealous because mine was just the normal I voted sticker. So that will motivate some Americans to get, it's surprising, just a little bit of a sticker to your civic responsibility, but what gets people in the voting groups.
All right, very quickly, let's go to Jigawa. Jigawa, please could you unmute yourself and ask your question very quickly, and then we'll go back to you, Dan.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Hello, everyone, members of the ITV. My name is Suleiman Ahmed Barry. So I'm here from Jigawa. Duse. So my question is that what is the implication of fake news to the political activities that are carried out in US? The impact, the implications.
Implications of fake news.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Over to you.
I think one would have to have a completely separate talk to talk about the implications of fake news, and Dr. Sam touched on this a little bit. One example that I heard of, I was going to get a haircut before I left, and the hairdresser said, you know, I saw that I can vote online. I just have to click a button. I don't even have to go to the polling place. And I said, you might want to check that that's a US government website, because I know you can't vote online. But this woman is not going to vote in person because she thinks her vote online counts. So that's someone whose vote was either going to go to Vice President Harris or former President Trump that thinks that they voted, but because of fake information, like you can vote online, they didn't. There was some robocalls that were using the likeness of the presidential candidates to say, don't forget to go out and vote on November 6th. So vote on November 6th, you're not gonna be able to vote because the election will already have been decided. So it does hinder people's ability to make decisions. It hinders their ability to get accurate information. The United States has started at the top of every government website. It says this is an official US government website and this is how you know. And it has all the indicators. It ends in .gov. You can't have a .gov address in the United States if you're not a government agency. So people can know that the information coming out of there is true. But it really does affect the way that people vote. I have plenty of relatives and friends who will see a picture online and say, I saw a picture of, there was a famous one, of President Trump in the floodwaters in North Carolina helping save a puppy. And I said that, yes, you saw a picture of that, but that didn't happen. Or I saw a picture of, Vice President Kamala Harris, doing this or doing that. And you can say, yes, there was a picture of that, but it didn't happen. And so that might influence how people vote if they're at a very surface level taking in information. There are a bunch of great websites out there, PolitiFact, Snopes, websites that will check these images and check facts, but most Americans will not take the extra step to do that. They take what they see on Facebook at face value.
Thank you very much. So we'll do this quickly. Just go straight to your question, all right? At least just 30 seconds to ask your question. We'll move to the next person so we can move faster. Please, over to you, then we'll go to the next row. No worries.
Thank you. My name is Emeka Eze. From the presentation, excellent presentation too. We are told that Nigerian presidential system is coiled towards American system. Now, the American system has electoral college and popular votes. Nigerian system, I think we have popular votes and number of states we're able to catch stuff, but it's not working for us. Supposing if we decide to emulate completely how the American system works. So my question now is, how was the electoral votes allocated to states? Now you have states like California with 55 or 50 electoral votes. 54 now. Electoral votes, and you have another state with just 3. So what is the criteria in allocating? Because that's another problem that I foresee in Nigeria. I mean, how are you going to give my state, Imo State, three? It's
very easy. Every state has 2 senators. The Senate is equal representation by state. The House of Representatives is based off population, which is done based off the census. The number of electors is your number of senators, so everyone is 2, plus the number of representatives. Every state has at least 1. So people who have 3 electoral votes have the 2 senators, and then they're 1 representative for the entire state in the House of Representatives. California has 52 representatives in the House of Representatives, so there are 2 senators plus their number of representatives. It's all based on the census every decade, how those representatives are allocated, and then those 2 numbers are added together. Yeah, Dr. Sam.
I want to add something. You see, when it comes to you are going into something about what is called in the US as gerrymandering.
that is delineation of districts. What we call here constituency or senatorial team. And that's what you are doing. So they have a standard way of doing it. And these are things that account for equality and competitiveness. You don't, this state is not cheated because so they have a number of population that makes up so number of people. So California is used to be 55, but it is now 54, I should say. So because it has a population that is big enough, and they are seen as the big members of the union. And so those ones, their populations are smaller. After them is Texas, I think. Texas has 14. So, and then other ones like that. So that's based on population. And then a very thorough means of delineating the constituency. The one that we present.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, please, next question. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I hear you.
My name is Annie Amikuri. Thank you for the presentation. I'm a journalist and an electoral specialist. And I have, I think, 2-in-1 questions. It's about the electoral college.
Okay.
Yes. And we said that it's not about popular votes. Sorry, it's not about the most votes. It's kind of about popularity and what they think, who they think can do the job. And I want to make reference to President Harris's candidacy, which switched up about 4 months ago. They seemed like there was some kind of fluidity was Biden, and next thing there's Harris, the last 4 months. So what are the modalities we put in place to ensure that this fluidity doesn't affect the selection process from the electoral fluidity?
Okay.
Yes, I mean, I think that was the first time anything like that happened. I've seen from the Americans with their comments about Harris suddenly coming on board 4 months into the elections. So my question is, it seemed that there was some kind of fluidity in that happening. And what are the modalities we put in place to ensure that that same fluidity doesn't come on when the electoral college is making a decision on pushing the president?
Great question. President Biden's decision to step down was very strategic in timing. It happened before the Democratic National Convention. So each party selects their candidate differently. And had President Biden stepped down any later, there would have been a more complicated answer to that question because people started casting ballots very soon after their delegates, based on the primaries in the states, started casting ballots very soon after President Biden dropped out. It has never happened before where someone after convention has either stepped down or fallen ill or not been able to assume the role of presidency. It's unclear what would happen if, for example, between November 5th and January 20th, when our new president's sworn in, if either former President Trump or Vice President Harris were to step down or resign and say, I can't do the job or not do the job, unclear what would happen. The general consensus among most Americans is that, well, whoever was elected vice president would ultimately take that role. I hope that doesn't happen because then we're in uncharted territory, but we were in uncharted territory in July when President Biden stepped down. So we figure it out as it goes, and this is why there are legal systems in place that Dr. Sam talked about to challenge anything like that happens. If you think it's unfair, you can bring it to court. But it will certainly be interesting to see what happens. Presidents have passed away very soon into their term. President William Henry Harrison, I think, about 2 months before he died, and then his vice president took over. But never before has it happened in the very short time frame between November 5th and January 20th.
Thank you very much. Samuel, over to you.
Can you hear me? Thank you very much. We quickly go to Maiduguri. Maiduguri says, talking about democracy as a journey in both the United States and other parts of the world, how would you rate Americans' democratic system, looking at what happened in your last election, where Trump was accused of election, or where Trump has accused the election of being rigged? I don't know whether you got that question correctly. I go to Bauchi. Adebayo says, talking about polls and predictions, I've been reading and seeing many headlines with so many polls and predictions influencing public opinions. Do you believe they affect the outcome of the election? Yes, can we stop?
You take the first.
Yes, you can.
You take the first one?
Please. Don't respond now.
In terms of the second one, I think that polls absolutely can influence an election. Either if it's super close, people might be more motivated to go out and vote. If it's somewhere like California or New York, where you're seeing polls that say Vice President Harris is going to win by a lot, why would I go vote if I already, the person that I'm going to vote for or the person I'm not going to vote for is already going to win or lose? I think there's been a lot of controversy surrounding exit polls. So exit polls are, I go into the voting booth and I come out and there's someone standing there that says, hey, do you mind telling me who you voted for? And they can either say, no, I don't want to tell you and walk away, or they can say, I voted for this person or that person. And then in the evening on election day, very often news sources will report that, while there are still people waiting to vote in line or deciding whether or not they're going to go out and vote. And I think that can very much influence a person's decision to vote. If I'm seeing an exit poll that North Carolina, which is a swing state, is winning by 10 points for Vice President Harris, and I was going to go vote for Vice President Harris, but 10 points in the exit polls, you know, I'm just going to sit and eat my pizza or do whatever and not go out to the polls. That might influence someone to vote or not vote. Or if you're seeing an exit polls, oh, it's super close, maybe I should get off the couch and go vote. So polls definitely can influence people's opinion and their motivations to go vote, but polls are not the election. I think that's the most important thing that you'll hear pundits on the news or politicians say. The polls can say that someone's going to win by a lot. Ultimately, the only poll that matters is the one that comes out on election night. And you can hear a lot of information, but at the end of the day, if the votes say that candidate A won and candidate B lost, doesn't matter what the poll 6 months prior said. It doesn't matter, because when the votes come in, that's who wins the election.
I think the only thing I can add is that, you know, United States polling results, there is a continuous. If the polling may say you're winning today, after 2 days, you'll find out another poll and say you're not winning. So it's an ongoing thing that helps you to assess people and what they are doing. And again, let me tell you, when it comes to polling, you must look at the integrity of the empiricity of whoever that is publishing that. It's very important. Because in politics, there's a lot of propaganda. That is whether here or there, that is a system in politics. They're everywhere. You know, the only thing about the United States is that they have safety valves. They have red flag where you cannot pass. So that's the only difference.
Very quickly.
I'll also say Americans are impatient. That's why we do polls. We want to know the results of the election before the election happens. And that's really why you've got actually websites now where you can bet on the results of elections. You can say, I'm going to put this much that Vice President Harris or former President Trump's going to win. Americans want to know what's going to happen because we don't like the idea of not knowing what's going to happen. And so now, do these polls tell us anything? No. You look at the polls every day. One day it says Vice President Harris is going to run away with the Electoral College. The other time it says President Trump or former President Trump's going to win the whole thing by a landslide. They don't tell us anything, but somehow they make us feel a little bit better that we have some idea of what's going on, regardless of whether or not that's based in reality.
Thank you. Samuel, one more.
All right, this is coming from Kano. It says Nigerian democratic system has a roadblock to a strong democratic system, such as ethnic and religious tensions, corruptions, insecurity, electoral fraud, and violence. How can we overcome these problems to get a stronger democratic system in Nigeria? And it seems the Abuja just got frozen. Did you hear my question? Did you hear my question? Daniel, did you hear my question? Hello, did you hear my question? They're not hearing me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
All right. Nigerian democratic system has a roadblock to a strong democratic system, such as ethnic and religious tensions, corruptions, insecurity, electoral fraud, and violence. How can we overcome these problems to get a strong democratic system in Nigeria? Dr. Sam. That's from Kano. We can hear the speaker.
Talk that day. But while we're here, even when I was writing a book on critical election, when a college of scholars came together to give the book a copy, we said that we're not going to compare Nigeria with the United States. We can't compare them. We can only take lessons. So as this is going on, we take our lessons. But I don't think I'm permitted to begin to discuss US election in Nigeria today. We have to take our lessons. Transparency, competitiveness. There are things that will help us to define our elections in this country.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Let me quickly squeeze one more, please.
Okay.
And this one more, it has to do with, it said, what role do the independent election observers play in ensuring integrity of the US elections? Because some of us said we were shocked. So how does that play out?
Independent. Well, when I was making my presentation, I made it clear that observers were allowed to observe what happened and speak without restriction. You submit your reports without restriction. And that is what is important about monitoring an election. I used to monitor election, but when you come back and what you have seen, you can't mention it. So that's the difference. There, whether you are representing your political party, because parties also have the representatives, or you are an independent observer, whatever you have seen, you are allowed to say what you have seen openly, publicly. But if you are not seeing anything, you don't have to say something. That's true.
Thank you very much. Yes. Oh, yes, please. Thank you, someone. Go ahead.
I don't know if it's afternoon. A very good day to everyone here. My name is Princess Halima, a journalist, PR practitioner. I'm a Rotarian and I'm a gender activist. I will not bring in gender activism, but Kamala Harris is interesting. And I'm happy that she's going to lead. And have monitored the election in Nigeria since democracy started. I've been privileged to be in America 3 times during presidential elections from Obama. And with whatever type of democracy we are practicing here is totally different from what is happening there. So perhaps we need to remain our own here, the way it will suit us, because if we say we are practicing democracy, we are distributing our place. And if we remain like this for the next 20, 30 years, we will not achieve anything. So let us just tell each other the truth. so that that truth can set us free if we want to be free from whatever is happening. And then most depressing is that you go and monitor election, you see things, even medium, your own medium will tell you, don't let Nigeria catch fire. Because a lot of things that you will see, you will not have avenues to air them. And if you air them among the civil society group, they only capture it. And when they send in reports, nobody even looks at the reports. So you go out and monitor election, you come back very depressed because you found out that your country is actually going down instead of stepping up. Look at the statistics that you give. That is coming down. Because one day we go to the, if you want to vote, you go to the polling unit, you find out that you are the only person there. People will not come out of their house. But for Charlotte, just tell me how the visually impaired people, the visually impaired, I will not say people living with disability. I saw former President Jimmy Carter went to cast his votes, and he was excited at that age. For those that are visually impaired, how do they normally cast their votes?
So we have something called the Americans with Disability Act, which was very fortunately widespread due to the use of the interstate system. But you are able to request a ballot in Braille. You are actually able, I used to work helping people with voter access. You were able to have someone come in and help you, and if you were unable to see the ballot and you can't read Braille. So there are a lot of options for people who are visually impaired. Ultimately, I think the baseline rule is that no American should not be able to vote because of visual impairment, not being able to hear or something like that. And there are multiple avenues to remedy their ability the fact that they can't access a normal ballot like you or me can go in.
Yes.
And there are ballots in Braille. Like I said, you can have like a home aide come and help you sign your ballot. And there are some places that you can do curbside voting. You can have someone come out and help you fill out your ballot, and then they go and submit it for you.
You know why I asked that question? I didn't ask for those who cannot hear. Because if you cannot hear, at least you can see. But for those who cannot see, you call somebody to help you. You tell the person who you want to vote for. But you cannot even see to know if that person is doing what is right. Are there ways to monitor it to make sure that even the person you call, maybe who the person wants to win the election is different from who you want to win the election? So that at the end of the day, not shock change.
That makes sense. I'd say most Americans who are visually impaired read Braille, so they're able to cast the ballots that way. And but say an American is unable to read the system that in America we use for people who are visually impaired, they can have a family member or a friend come help them. And the people who vote to sign or vote to help register voters, help get people voting, they have to sign multiple things saying, you know, I'm here as a nonpartisan poll worker. There's actually excused absences from work. So if I wanted to be a poll worker, I'd have an excused absence from work on election day to go be able to help the polls. But most of the time, it's actually people in retirement who come out and will work the polls that day. They sign lots of things saying, I will not impose my personal views, regardless of who I voted for. I will help make sure that each individual is able to cast their vote for the person that they would like in a timely, orderly, and fair fashion.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. I'm not sure what's here. Don't worry. Let's do this with them. Sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Eziokwu. I'm a member of the Nigerian Bar Association. Unfortunately, I came a little late while your presentation was on, but at least from the presentation of Dr. Sam, I got an insight into what you said. I was excited to hear, I'm sure most of us were, to hear that Nigeria is on the same league with America when it comes to the issue of presidential system. But I want to ask a question directed to Dr. Sam, because you are here, home-bred, you feel the heat, you feel the pulse, you know it all. Considering those issues we have raised, the issues of values in the American system, a strong institution, and values you have, public interest as against, you have the what do you call it, the major organ of civic accountability, which is the court or judicial system, strong to make sure things are in order. In the light of the lapses we have in these areas here, do you still think that presidential system is viable as against parliamentary system where you get to know your candidates, you hear them talk to you, as against here where all you need is resources, resources to compromise the system, even if they don't know you. I believe we are much more. I want to answer this. We try to answer Halima's question. She posed a question: what sort of system we have? I believe we are tending towards what I consider to be kakistocratic plutocracy. Why you have a government by the least competent, or just because they have resources to buy their way through. Even if they are not known to the people, they are not known to the electorate, they don't understand what the constitution is all about. How is a constitutional democracy? Chapter 2 of the Constitution tells you the fundamental objective or directed principles of state policy, what governance should be about, what politics should be about, and what leadership that is supposed to be selected, elected through the electoral process ought to represent. But we have a situation where you are so ignorant, incompetent, you don't need to know all of this, but just have resources to buy your way through, and how viable is the presidential system in the context of that.
Well, Eziokwu is trying to bring us to discuss Nigeria. And if you want me to say my opinion, I say in the closing presentation, I say we need to find a way of collaboration. What do we do? We have not started. When I say we should salute the heroes of democracy in the United States, I knew it was strategic. Because today, there will be tomorrow. So what you see us doing today is to make sure we change the narrative. And you can't do anything until you change the mindset of human beings. These guys, there are people who are passionate. There are people who are patriotic. They are leaders. They were selfless. Whatever you can bring up. They were not thinking about themselves. Until we get to that point, then we will begin to reason like people. So for me, I think the only thing we can do, thinking about collaboration, is we have started a center for good governance where we teach people on ethics and values, like you suggested. That's what we do at the center. I'm a leadership and good governance coach. We tell you, if you don't do this, there's nothing you can achieve. It is not only publicly, but privately. If you will always live a life of deceit, you always live a life of cheating, you always live a life that you don't care about what happens to the next level, only yourself. Yeah, at the verge of thinking you have succeeded, you see you have not done anything. So that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Mr. Ike. I'm still quite puzzled about the issue of candidates who scored 270 plus electoral college votes, eventually wins the election against a candidate who had the majority vote in an election, instead of saying that the will of the majority should prevail in a democracy. So it's a bit of contradiction. I think we need to look at that and see how we can really get the people who actually voted for the person they wanted, as against a few persons that formed the electoral college votes, presumed to be the person that is assumed to have won an election.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'd say it's definitely it's a fundamental question that a lot of Americans are grappling with, especially since before 2000, the most recent examples of people not winning the popular vote but winning the presidency were 1876 and 1888. So a while back, most Americans didn't remember it. Pretty much all Americans today were alive or remember American voting age. we're alive or remember Bush 4 in 2000 and Clinton Trump in 2016. So you're right, it does seem contradictory, which is why some people are arguing for the abolishment of the Electoral College. Some states are pushing to institute a whoever wins the national popular vote is who our electors will go to. But ultimately, I think it comes down to the question of federalism and the setup of the system. So, for example, senators in the US used to not be elected directly by the people. Now they are. It was a constitutional amendment. We were able to change that. If that's the will of the American people, there can be another constitutional amendment to prescribe that whoever wins the most votes in the country is the person who becomes the president. But then you have questions about, are we the United States of America or are we just America? So it's an ongoing active conversation. I don't have any answers. I don't know that anyone does have answers. People have a lot of opinions, but there are ways to litigate this in constitutional amendments and conversation that we may see in the coming years or decades.
Thank you very much. The next room. Let's move on. Yes.
I would have added something to them.
Okay.
Yes, because there's need for us to understand what is happening. You see, it's not like here when we're saying we're running federalism. When you are running federal system of government, the units are more important. Units, those who make up that union are more important. Because any vote you cast, you are casting it in your state. And so, anywhere that you win the highest number of votes, your people there will now go and vote. So, in any way you look at it, it is about the union, those who are subunits of the state. If you don't represent them well, they may decide to find a way of pulling out.
Sorry, Mr. Dr. Sam, but the thing that it also creates a scenario where cabals hijack the electoral process. Sorry?
No, it is still based on the ballot. If Republicans wins in the state, it means the number of electoral votes there belongs to. So you may win in a state where the electoral votes are not many. So that is why you contest election in the ones that have strong electoral votes. So you can't go to a place like California that has 55. If you lose the election there, you win. You will not win. Because before you cover the number of electoral votes there, not those one places you have worked, by the time you find out, so that is entirely what I want you to understand, that this thing is putting the units. It's just like the states now coming and say we are doing the final vote. Yes.
For instance, for instance, in third world countries, where a lot of extraneous factors influence how people vote, and you have a place like California in a third world country, so many variables which are not in tune with principles of democracy, or underlying principles that you can say this is the best practice, will prevail in throwing up people who are going to vote in that place.
Well, I think what we need to take from here is that, do you see what is happening in around us? Exclusivity. Now we can do without a state. We can do without even a zone. It's not done in the federalism. That's what that thing is showing us. You can't exclude anybody and go ahead. So they have pointed that the forefathers, if you must rule this state, you have to go and make sure all the units are supporting you. And you have to win, you have to be the winner when they're all together. So because of that, the units now, the federative units are strong enough supporting the state. And they're all moving together. And that's why if you want to bring out anybody who contests the election, you look for the best. You don't just go to one place and pick somebody who, even with tests, you don't know whether they manipulated or not. So this is I'm restricting myself not to go into our context here, so that we don't lose what we have got. If we have a space for that, then I'll tell you what is playing. You cannot go ahead in a federal system of government where you cannot go with your units. It's one of the major underdevelopment. Because the units are not going with you. No, I got 5% here, and because of 5% there. No, it's not like that. You have to try and move them together. If you can't move all together, you cannot go.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll take one more question and we'll go back online somewhere. One more question, then we'll go back online. Sorry, my question is very. It's not really a question. Oh yeah, it's a question. I listened to the presentation, all the comments, all the questions. But while I was there, I was trying to think out of the box. Okay. In the true sense of it, the complaints here about democracy campaigns and the rest of them are able to raise issue of tribalism, differences in religion, race in our own context, like in Nigeria, talk of tribalism, religion, and in America then race, and the issue of faith. In America, the issue of gay and the rest of it, you know. See, when you now look at all these negatives, that is the human factor in democracy. In all sense, do you really think that democracy can be taken as the best form of governance? Can we look outside democracy and start adopting a way of choosing our leaders outside? Because I know America is trying to claim the beacon of democracy. They are not, because a few days ago, voters' box was burnt in Washington, D.C. Some people went and bought those who have already voted. They burnt the votes there. And what is happening in Nigeria? In Nigeria is equivalent to people running away with the ballot box. So you could do it in America too. See? Then there
were two ballot boxes that were lit on fire in states in the United States that held ballots that were already.
Yes, the votes here, there's something, and those votes are lost. Although they made announcements.
I'm not sure if they've been lost.
No, they made an announcement inviting those who had already voted to come back to confirm whether their votes among ones that got voted. Then another thing in Nigeria. In America now, some people give $100, $50 voucher to induce voters, which is exactly what you are trying to do in Nigeria by vote buying, right? So if you look at these negatives, both there in America and here in Nigeria, do you truly think that democracy still remain the best form of government? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That's a big question. I don't know if I probably have to do a lot more research and thought than spitballing up here. But I think you'd find that most Americans still agree that democracy is the best form of government. You're talking about tribalism, religious differences. In America, racial divide is a really big thing. We're a very multicultural society. And the rhetoric of that, you can see it as like, oh, we're pitting this group against that group, or this group's gonna vote this way. And I think at the end of the day, removing all those big voices, and this idea, kind of an overall arching theme, if you get two Americans in a room who are diametrically opposed on every single front, but they can have a conversation, they'll have that conversation and they'll usually come out of that conversation agreeing on a few things. So I saw a video this morning actually of someone who'd been to 94 Trump rallies went to Vice President Harris's rally with Saban video and talked to a bunch of her supporters. And in all of those conversations, they all left kind of with an understanding of each other that they wouldn't have found if you're watching, CNN or Fox News, where it looks very combative. So I think at the end of the day, most Americans still, there's definitely polling out there that I just don't have off the top of my head. Most Americans still believe that democracy is the best form of government. It's my own personal opinion. It's for another time and place. But definitely interesting factors that you point out, Dr. Sam.
Okay. I think he's going into. I would have loved him to suggest. He would have given us to compare this. Maybe another day. Let me tell us. Okay, talking about and that's why I said if I was given an alternative, we'll be able to explain it so that I am trying to avoid comparison here. Because they are not doing something where I have not made that same plan. You have refused to do something where it's not like we're in Abuja, they will write everybody in Abuja. It's not true. Some people in Abuja are living well. Some are doing terrible things. So people in Lagos, they are so bad. No, there are people in Lagos that are doing well. What I want to tell you is that government of the people still remains the best if you go into the principle. Because the problem we have there is that we have refused to allow the people to do their bidding, to play the part. Because we can't control our appetite. We can't control our appetite. And until we get to that one, let me tell you, I took time to study about some of the heroes of democracy in the United States. They paid the price. Starting from fighting a war. And then coming home to decide this is the way we want to run. My friend, an American, told me, Sam, what if you want me to talk about this one, I'll talk about this one. Told me, Sam, democracy runs on blood. Professor from the United States, my friend. So you are not ready to stand up for anything. And so how do things change? These guys do a lot. If you look what they don't want, they be on the street, they say no. But we nobody wants anything to happen. So we change. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Samuel, one more question, then we'll take it back to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Samuel,
okay.
one more. We'll give you back chances.
Okay.
Yeah, Senator Mawaka, I'll be quite brief. When my friend Sam Eziokwu was presented a very wonderful paper, I must say that. Over and over, he told us that America is a beacon of democracy, a model for aspiring democracy, because that's why I see Nigeria. But I'm really bothered that we've been told that it's important before you can vote that you should not be a felon. But here in America today, we have a convicted felon on the ballot.
That is factually accurate.
Who is the convicted felon?
Former President Trump's a convicted felon. So that's factually accurate. As to there is no rules against him running for president. That's something that Congress could decide to do. But I'm not going to say anything other than that's factually accurate.
Thank you very much. Sam, over to you.
Thank you very, very, very much. We, as you are enjoying the sessions, we're also having fun here. Let me just quickly thank the online, those who are joining us on the Facebook. Somebody dropped a message, Jonathan Bauer, he said, this is transformative. So the session is transformative. So we thank you very much. I also would like to point us to a documentary that is available on the YouTube for everyone to watch. It's called A Force More Powerful. A Force More Powerful. I will encourage everyone here to go online on the YouTube to watch. There are about 6 of them, series of them, India, Poland, South Africa, as well as United States, and see the cost of securing democracy in those respective places, just to support what Dr. Samuel said. The last question here is from Benin City. How is election secured and voters fraud being addressed in the United States? That's the final question from Benin City.
One thing I just start by saying is it's different in every single state. Each state handles these things differently. There are a number of voter ID laws depending on your state. So some states require you to go in with a photo ID, and that photo ID match your name and the person who's registered to vote in order for you to even get your ballot. Some states require just something as simple as a piece of mail that has your name on it and your address to prove that you're the person who's voting at that precinct. And some states require no identification, but they do require you to register to vote. So that's one thing that some states do, some states don't do in regards to voter identity. In terms of voter fraud, there have been very few actual cases of proven voter fraud in the United States. I think that's important to just point out. It's not a pervasive issue. The rhetoric around it suggests that it is. You can go online for yourself and look at court cases, look at the results of those court cases, the outcomes, but ultimately, very rarely do we see people voting twice, people who are not registered to vote voting. This concept of dead people voting. For example, if you have someone who voted early and then passed away before the election, I guess technically in that scenario, a dead person is voting, but that's allowed. That's, early voting for that's I guess one of the advantages of early voting if you think you're about to meet your demise. But voter fraud is not widespread in the United States. It is, and if you think there's voter fraud, there are remedies to address it. You saw a lot of voter fraud cases take place in Georgia and Arizona after this past election, and some of those are still being litigated today. They're still in court trying to determine whether or not those cases were in fact fraudulent. And if they are, the people will be prosecuted to the highest extent of the law. You can't vote if you are not the person who is registered to vote. It's not legal. So you will be prosecuted, but it does take time to process all of those things. And the court system was slowed down a lot by the COVID-19 pandemic. So voter fraud is not pervasive. When I went in to vote, I had to give them my Virginia driver's license. They then asked my address is different because I moved. They then asked my current address and confirmed that picture was me and the picture on the license was me. And then they gave me my ballot and they asked me to confirm what my usual voting center is because early voting takes place at different precincts. So I felt that if someone had pretended to be me and walked into a voting place, even if it was like my mom or a friend had walked in and said, I'm Charlotte, I'm here to vote, they wouldn't have been able to do it. So I really don't think voter fraud is as pervasive of an issue as it sometimes seems to be in the media.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
So good afternoon. You've answered some of my questions. My name is Ifoma. I am a cybersecurity analyst, and I just want to know about the cybersecurity structure around the electronic voting system. And what if there is an individual who is intentionally changing the votes remotely before it gets to not coalition. Like before it's like if I click Trump, I like Trump fan. Yes, and and if someone clicks Trump and there's someone called my and there's someone who is able to remotely change that to Harris, and it turns out Harris on the other side, who deals with these things? Is there like a body? Because I'd like to follow them and study some of their works. And how swift is this dealt with? Secondly, how does America know there's no overvoting? That's my That's my own question. So how do they know that someone who is sending in a ballot is actually registered? How do they know, like, because we've touched the issue of ID, because I was surprised there's no ID verification in some states. For America, it's ridiculous for me, yeah. Because it's like, how do you know people voting are eligible to vote? I'm sorry, what's eligible to vote in America?
So you have to be over the age of 18, not be a felon. That's about it. There used to, over the years, as Dr. Sam talked about, there have been various other requirements, but right now, over the age of 18, not a felon, and registered to vote. So some states have same-day voter registration. I can show up at the polls and say, never voted before, but I want to vote today. Here's my information, and you can vote. Other states require a certain number of days in advance. For me, when I moved to Virginia and I got my license, one of the questions they asked me was, would you like to register to vote? And I was able to register to vote right when I got my license. And they sent me my voter registration card, which you don't need, but it's good to have. So it does, like I said, depend on the state. In terms of a man in the middle, I'm not sure the cybersecurity logistics of US elections. I know that I filled out my ballot on paper, it went into a machine, they took that ballot, and then they're holding on to that ballot in case they need to audit the election and go through a recount. So I'm not the right person to ask specific technicalities about that. You see stories about that, but most of the fact checkers have actually debunked those stories. They're not accurate. And then in terms of that's a great question. You know, what if I order a mail-in ballot, I fill it out, and then I decide on election day, I want to go vote again. They have a record usually of the fact that you ordered an absentee ballot. So if I ordered an absentee ballot and I show up on election day, they're going to ask for that absentee ballot. If I'm able to hand them an empty absentee ballot, I'm able to vote on election day. But if I say, oh no, I don't have it, you cannot vote on election day because you've already been issued your ballot. You know, if I voted early, say I try and go in and vote again, they have a record that I already voted. And even if they didn't, even if they let me through to vote, and I fill out another ballot and I submitted it, the system is going to check against that and see that Charlotte Nazarian voted, you know, on October 13th, but also tried to vote on October or November 5th. And both votes don't count. So there are checks in place to make sure that doesn't happen. And I can see how that would be a concern, especially when you're dealing with paper and mail ballots, but that's part of the reason why we do recounts. So if they're going through a recount and they see that, oh, this person is a ballot twice, then they can throw out that vote because you can't vote twice. One person, one vote, another meeting of our democracy.
Thank you.
All right, the last question.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stella Sanders. Brilliant presentation by Dr. Charles. I wasn't here when you did your presentation, but I'm sure you must have. Dr. Sam. Dr. Sam. While Dr. Sam was presenting, we made mention of legal framework in safeguarding elections and human rights. Use an acronym, HAPA. I wasn't opportune to hear the definition of HAPA or what it means, so I would like you to throw more light or explain what HAPA means. HAPA. Thank you.
Okay. HAPA is Help America Vote. HAPA is an act. Okay. It's an act. You know, it's an act that came up because of the last. The one that's you are putting into how you make sure that cyber security. That is why HAPA came. And I told you, HAPA, yes. I told you because of HAPA, they now have an information sharing center. I have told them, help the America Vote. Help America Vote. It's an act of the parliament. That is what shaped some of these cyber issues. And they now decided that it's not something you are allowed only INEC. Okay. It's not something Federal Electoral Commission of the United States handle. They now decided they're going to have a center where they share information. And they have to take that center to the security office
Directorate of Homeland Security. Homeland Security. So that is where this is being warehoused. So if an information comes and they are able to see it and deal with it, so you can't just come in and bring you anything at all. And so these are well, people don't know that these things are in place. When somebody comes out and say, "Oh, this will happen," this will happen, you don't know that they have safeguards, have areas you can't cross. And that is one thing I must tell us. It's not that, like who mentioned about burning of things. Yes, these are part of, there are many voter suppression activities. Because of time, I didn't go into them. You see, what actually happens is that those suppression activities, whether as a result of race or making sure that you stop a group of people from coming to vote, they have a law that deals with them. And that is why I said it before when I said that America practices liberal democracy that believes in rule of law. And so, rule of law takes care of, demeanor within the system. It's not that you have somebody who wants to say, "Let me try them." But if you try them, they will try it. That's the truth. But yeah, other places you will try them, nobody will try it. And then we do it again.
Last question. Thank you very much. My name is Wanaka. I know that America is modeling democracy, and America is interested in encouraging countries to come after democracy. Why then, when the countries that are trying to copy American democracy need information that will help them go through their own problems, America is so forthcoming. For example, there are some declassified information that have stayed over 10 years that Nigeria needed to drive our own democracy when we were in court. America was not forthcoming. Both university certificates, both records, America was not forthcoming. So we couldn't really benefit from who we are talking.
I can't speak to that specific situation. I'm not tracking the details of it. We have in the State Department, we have arms of the State Department that are dedicated to help build democracy, stand up human rights around the world. And there are people at the embassy here who work on that, just that, helping build democracies. In terms of information, I can't, like I said, I can't speak to that specific scenario. Classified information is a whole other topic we can talk about, and declassified information and the time period. Sometimes some information can never be declassified. It just really just depends. Like I said, I can't speak to that specific scenario.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sam. Any last word?
Yeah, well, and it looks like I was trying to share something with my continental chairman. You see, the organ here is in charge of African non-business forum. So he's not here just as a Nigerian. He is here as an African. Yes, an African. So I thought we'll be looking at. I made a suggestion when I finished this presentation that is there a way we can collaborate to begin to help us? It's not about, when I look at the whole thing, I have one comparison. That how can we work together, even if it's information sharing, learn less, even if it is building up the few that want to stand. Is there any way we can pull together and help those who want this democracy to succeed? These are a conversation that I would want the center, the space, the American space, the American embassy to also look at, because many have mentioned that the American democracy is a model. And because it's a model, there are many things we want to do. But those who want to do it may not have gotten to anywhere. They are to write a what should be had. But there's a way we can build them up. That is what we try to do in our center. If you will have a life of, you want to live a life of integrity, you want to live a life of honor, selflessness, and they want to build your nation. There's a mindset that a mindset you will build up. And so if we have such people, we will find a way of building them up. When you form a critical mass, you come in and you change things.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Charlotte. And then last word.
Just would say thank you for Nigeria's partnership with the United States for coming to this presentation. And the most important thing in democracy is that everyone participates and that conversations are ongoing. So, you know, have the tough conversations with people you disagree with. I think in America, we're struggling to do that. And just keep showing up to the polls, whether or not you think your vote's gonna count, or it's gonna be like outvoted by, it doesn't matter. Participation is the lifeblood of democracy.
I will turn it over now to Samuel Itayo for closing remarks. Samuel, over to you, please. You are still muted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Itayo.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can we jam our hands together for our speakers today? Everybody clap your hands. Everybody clap your hands. Sincerely, this has been a very wonderful session. Time well spent. The quality of presentations and the quality of interaction that we had today. We're extremely grateful to our speakers today. And we hope when we call you again, you will oblige us to come and share your wealth of experience with us. Thank you very much. And for all of us who joined us from various locations, thank you for taking our time. We believe that this time you have spent with us has been worth the while. Thank you, everyone. Before we go, we'd like to quickly show you 2 resources that you need in order to connect with American Spaces in Nigeria. And I'm going to share one very quickly. That's our bio link where we have our resources and links to opportunities. The link is right on the chat. I'm going to project it right now. Please just, so this is the link. Can you see my screen? All right, the directors in different locations, they have the links. So here we would like everyone before you leave today to please join our WhatsApp channel. That's where you get instant updates of opportunities and programs that we have. And then we have tons of resources here that are hidden, links to exchange fellowships and programs, locations across the country, books that you can borrow, and so on and so forth. And then tomorrow, we're having Speak with a Diplomat program with the cultural attaché of the U.S. Embassy in Abuja. Brian Newbert will be our guest on this program. The topic is Road to Diplomacy. This is a special session that we organize every month. It's a non-policy discussion. You can watch it from anywhere. All you need to do is just to connect with us. If you go to our Facebook page, you will see the links. If you want to join us in our American Spaces, you are free to do so. And please come. If you have students of diplomacy, history, this is a very good program for them. And without much ado, I would like to sign off at this point by thanking you once again and to say we will see you tomorrow for that great program at 10 o'clock. Till then, I wish everybody a wonderful day. Bye-bye to you. Bye, everyone.
So we have snacks to have again.